Hello and welcome to From There to Here, the podcast where we talk about what it's like to live a life far from home and everything it involves. I'm your host, Emma Bellani, and today my guest is Ochan Abba. Ochan is a content creator who's turned his experience as a migrant into videos that went viral on Instagram. And that's because they express with rare honesty and vulnerability how difficult this journey can be in Australia. In our conversation, Ochan opens up about the gap between his expectations and the reality when he arrived here, the loneliness of being othered, and the racial profiling that conditioned him to never leave his house, for instance, without an ID. He shares how making content became a form of therapy, so to speak, how he learned confidence through vulnerability, and why he believes he belongs everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Ochan Abba, welcome to the podcast From There to Here. You know, I've been watching your content on Instagram for a while now, and there are so many topics that you talk about that I think really align with this podcast. So yeah, just before we start the conversation, I wonder what led you to start doing this and find the strength to, be so authentically yourself on this platform, because it takes a lot of courage, I think.
So this all come down to before I moved to Australia. So before I moved to Australia, I was like an extrovert person. Yeah, so I was never an introvert, right? And when I moved here, I think going through isolation and like try to navigate myself through this society made me learn how to be introvert, if I could say that. And then recently, I think like this year or last year, start of last year, I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to be myself. I need to stop putting myself in a shell and actually just be myself, be expressive, because I feel like I'm an expressive kind of person. So I decided, you know what? I'll start just doing content, just be expressive.
Wow. Yeah, and it's funny what you say about shifting a trait of personality from being an extrovert to being an introvert, because I think that arriving in another country makes you very isolated. And so this extroverted part of your personality couldn't really show up in the same way it did before.
Yeah, 100%. Because like, if I can remember, since I was a kid, I've been always a storyteller. I always enjoy telling stories. So me putting myself in an introvert position, it made it so hard for me to be expressive. So then I decided, you know what, maybe all the experience that I went through, maybe I just talk about it.
How did you feel when you first put the content out there? Because for people who don't know the platform yet, you talk about your experience facing the camera, and things that are very deep. So how did that make you feel when you first put something so deep for the public to see?
So last year, before my loneliness video went viral, I was putting out like comedy. I would probably say comedy. It was like a little skits, 6 seconds, 12 seconds. And it didn't really do anything for me until I put out the video about loneliness. I don't know how I was feeling at the time. I think I was remembering like, what was I going through when I first moved to Australia? Just thinking about, I've been living in Australia for a while, and there's experiences that I went through that I have never shared with anybody. I was like, okay, I'm going to shoot it and then post it and see what happened. And when the video blew up, I think what made me overwhelmed was people around me start messaging me thinking that I was going through difficult times. But I'm like, I'm sharing the experiences that I went through. I mean, there's times that I still feel like I'm still in that situation. And then there's times that like, okay, I do have friends, I do have family around me, and I can talk to them, and they're good people. But it's some of the experience that I never shared with anybody. So I was like, I'll just put it out there and see.
I feel like it's almost like therapy in a way, because by sharing it and having people connect with your experience, it's a way of yourself processing what you've been through for so many years and stayed silent.
Yeah. And I think the amazing thing that I learned this year is I learned so many things about myself as well as I was shooting the videos. So it's like every single time I shoot a video, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that about me. I didn't know that about me. So it's like now I'm learning about myself a lot more. And I'm like, I think I'm this super confident guy now.
Tell me about the last thing you learned about yourself through the videos. I'm curious.
What did I learn? I think it's just the confidence of being free. Like I can be in a public setting now and just talk, and I can speak however I feel, and I can literally just be myself. But if you were to tell me to do that 2 years ago, I don't think I even leave the house 2 years ago. I used to think like just to go to supermarket, I feel like it used to take a lot of energy to just go to supermarket because I'm like, oh, there's gonna be a lot of people around. I don't want people staring at me. I don't want people looking at me. That was a lot.
Wow. Okay, yeah. So that's amazing that you've been able to acquire more confidence. So there is one thing that I want to start the conversation with. There was a post where you talked about the disillusion that you felt after migrating to Australia. There has been a gap between your expectations of how life in Australia was going to be like and the reality that you've experienced as a migrant. So can you share with us how you imagined your life would change in Australia, what you were hoping for when you decided to leave your homeland?
I thought from videos that I saw before coming to Australia, it was like this super friendly country. People will talk to anybody on the street. I mean, when I saw the video, I was like, oh, so it just feels like home, right? So I'm just moving from one place to another place that feels like home, but it has more job opportunities, right? But then once you come here, then you start realizing like, oh, everything is different. It's not actually what we saw on TV. So it's different.
Tell me more about that.
How would I put it down? I would say there's people that are friendly, and then there's people that are not friendly. And one thing that I realized in here is, in terms of a lot of things, there's still segregation. My expectation was like, oh, everybody's gonna get along because it's multicultural society. But then I feel like the more you're out of the city, the more you start to realize it's nothing to do with multicultural.
What you're talking about, is it linked to racism, experiences of racism?
Yeah, racism, discrimination, all of that. Yeah.
So tell me a bit more about, how racism has shown up for you, because I know that sometimes it doesn't really show up in a very obvious way. This happens, and it, happens at the moment in Melbourne, with all these anti-immigration protests, but also it happens in very subtle ways, in little things that people may not really understand. So perhaps give us an overview of how it has been like for you. What made you realize that you were actually encountering racism?
I would say the first time was in school. Some kids will tell you to go back to your country. Some kids will tell you that. I think that was my first time experiencing that because, I mean, coming from Africa, it's like you don't go through that. And here it's like different where somebody goes, oh, you don't look like one of us. You need to go back to where you come from. Or like the big one, I feel like the big one was when they put World Vision photos, right? They'll put these African kids, and then kids will go like, "Oh, that's your brother," you know? They'll say that. So I feel like that's experiencing that in high school, And then like workplaces where like somebody will go, oh, all black people are lazy, or all black people are like this, or all black people are criminals. You hear somebody saying that.
To your face?
Yeah,
Whoa,
yeah,
really?
I know. It's crazy.
And how do you react in a situation like this?
What I learned is you have to choose your battles. It's like you can't just, not everything you have to fight for. Some things is like, you have to just let it go, which you laugh it off and you just keep going with your day.
And there is something about having to laugh about it just so that you don't create waves that must be very frustrating.
It is. It is. The first few times you encounter it, it's super hard. But then, I feel like the more you go through it, then you're like, okay, I know what to deal with. I know how to deal with it now. Like, do I argue with the person or do I just let it go? Because I feel like most of these people already have a fixated mindset on what they're saying. So it's like whatever it is that you say will not change how they perceive you.
Yeah, but at the same time, if I can be the devil's advocate, to not say anything make it easier for them to continue doing it, And I wonder whether if, but yeah, I'm torn because at the same time, it shouldn't be your job to have to educate them about why this is hurtful constantly. But at the same time, if we don't stand up against it, then it continues to go on.
The thing is, let's just say there's other co-workers around us, they'll probably hear it. I used to think like, oh, maybe the co-workers will say something about it. But then it's like everybody just laugh it off and then it's supposed to just, die off. Like that's it.
They don't think it's offensive. I think that's probably the problem.
If you do say, oh, that's not right, this and that, they will just tell you it's a joke. It's supposed to be a joke. That's what they'll tell you. And I feel like that's where the gaslighting and manipulation comes in, where like they will say something very offensive, then they'll try to gaslight you for thinking how you actually take it. So then how do you fight that? And maybe it would be like 3-on-1, where three of them will go like, nah, it's just supposed to be a joke. Don't take it too serious.
And so I imagine that, with repeated experiences like that over the years in school, in the workforce, it made you try to suppress some parts of your identity that made you different to others. Like I know that a lot of code switching can happen when you're constantly reminded of your difference, then you try to minimize the differences so that you feel like you can belong more or blend in. Is it something that you've experienced?
What I experience is because look, so for example, I do a lot of sports, right? So within the sports sector, you go through these things a lot, and because I train people, it's like people don't believe you're supposed to be a coach. Let's just say you're a really good player, right? But then they think you being black, you're just supposed to be just a player. You can't teach. So then, for you to prove yourself that you can teach, it's like you have to have more qualification than other people that are not like you, just to prove that you have the knowledge. Yeah,
Wow. So you feel like you have to prove your qualifications, your credibility even more so that people
100%.
consider you as equal?
Yeah, 100%.
That's really tough. Tell me more about the loneliness and the sense of social isolation that you've experienced over the years as a result of that.
When I first moved to Australia, it's like it was difficult to make friends because I was different. And the only time that I felt like I became part of the group, it was when I was better than everybody in sports, you know? So then everybody wanted to be my friend. But before that, nobody really wanted to talk to you, want to hang out with you until you start beating them in sports. Then they go, oh, maybe we can be friends. And that leads to, once the sport finishes, then you are now you are in your own shell because we have nothing else in common to talk about apart from sports. So we can't really talk about anything else outside sports. So then, how is these people really my friend? That's how I used to think. If we're not talking about soccer, we're not talking about basketball, we're not talking about running, like, what is there for us to talk about?
I see two things in what you say. The first one is when they come to you as a result of your performance in sport,
Mm.
is it really about them wanting to connect with you, or is it because of something that they want to gain from you because you are good at sport? So you feel a bit used in that
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
And then there is the perhaps the lack of curiosity, I would imagine, because if you
Mm.
say that you have nothing to talk about, I imagine that there are plenty of things that they could be talking about with you. But I feel like, do you feel it comes from a lack of curiosity on their end?
I don't know. I never really thought about it like that. And from the first one, what you said is yes, sometimes it feels like, they're using you for your abilities because, you're better than everybody. And you being in their team makes them better. I mean, makes them have a better team, not maybe better individuals, but you have a better team. And once the game finishes, it's like, all right, we're done with him. That's it. And even if you sit around with them and have a conversation, to the second one that you said, lack of curiosity, it's like we can sit down and talk about things, but then they don't think you are intelligent enough to comprehend such conversations.
Give me an example, perhaps, to make it very concrete.
Like, for example, if we were to sit and talk about history, or we could talk about anything else, they would not want to get in depth of trying to understand what it is that you're trying to say, right? And the only time you would engage in a conversation with them is if something relate to violence, relate to sports. Literally, that's the only two things. So we could talk about American politics, about how Donald Trump is not the best president, or we could talk about which basketball team is the best team. But then we don't really have a meaningful conversation where we actually talking to get to know each other as individuals.
Hmm. And that's, I think, something that is very hard for many migrants here is the casualness of the relationships, the fact that it's very hard for it to become deep. It requires a lot of patience, a lot of efforts to really build deep relationships where you really truly feel heard. And I don't know whether it's like part of the culture in the sense that there is a reluctance to share emotional struggles. So you can keep the conversation very light, but then you really don't get a sense of what is really going on in their lives. Do you feel that there is an element of that?
The funny thing is, we could have conversations that actually would make me and the person understand each other much better. I mean, I don't need to know too much about your family, but I just need to know enough, like in terms of conversation, like are we engaging in the right conversation? Not just us talking about sports, because once the sport finishes, then what? I know nothing about you, but I know which team you like. That's about it.
I think that the way relationships are built here is around activities. Sport is one of them. It's a really good way to make friends. But in order to really get into the deep relationship, it is a lot harder for this to happen. And you need to have seen and met the person multiple times, sometimes years before they open up to you. At least it has been my experience. I feel that I've been always super surprised of how long it takes for someone to really express a personal element of their lives. And for years, I've had conversations with them, and I really don't know who they are. And in France, it's a lot more common to talk about your childhood, what you've been through, like things that are really telling a lot about the person you are today. There isn't this emotional filter, it's pretty in your face, which can be, very challenging for people from cultures like Australia when they come to France because it sounds very like, but yeah. Do you think that there is a difference? back home versus Australia in the way people connect?
I would say so. I would say for us, it's more communal based. So it's like completely different. From that to you just being here by yourself, like it's hard. Like, for example, when the older African people come to Australia, because they've been living in a different way for like years. Them coming to Australia to this new way of living, it just becomes so difficult. And a lot of them fall into depression and stress very easily because everything else is so different now.
What do you mean?
Like, for example, you can't just turn up to somebody's house here, which back home, like, I don't have to call you. I can just turn up to your house, you know? So that's something that a lot of older African people struggle with in Australia. I mean, when you're younger, it's easier to integrate into the society, but then when you're older and you're already fixated in a way that you already lived, then it becomes so difficult.
I feel that here, independence, self-reliance, privacy is more important perhaps than, this let's connect with each other kind of thing. But I think the primacy is really about independence, self-reliance, and privacy. So yeah, I think it leads a lot of people to think that they have to do things alone. It leads a lot of people to avoid asking for help and, neglect building deep supportive ties. Mm-mm. What was the hardest for you about this migration journey now that you think about it and you can reflect about it? What really made you struggle the most?
I'll say family and friends.
Yeah.
Like back home, when you have dinner with 10 plus people. And then here it's like people eat dinner at random weird times and you get to eat dinner by yourself. And yeah, back home they'll cook and everybody eat at the same time. If you're not there, then you missed out. Like it is like that's it. But here's like, oh, somebody eat at 3, somebody eat at 4, somebody eat at 5, at 10. It's like just different times. So it's like seeing that and friends just turning up to my house like random times. I feel like I missed that.
And do you think people could do something different here that would enable a bit more of the friendship and the sense of community to emerge?
I'll say maybe outdoor living more. I mean, like park, utilizing park more. So I try to do this thing right in my area where I try to create a group chat with everybody around the area that do sports. Could be like different sports, but like just sports. And we just have to rock up at the park in the afternoons and play sports for 3 hours.
Hmm.
So I try to do something like that.
Escape the screen, escape, the social
Yeah,
media, and be really truly connected as humans.
yeah, 100%. Where we're just out there interacting 3 hours, 2 hours. Some people come for 30 minutes, 1 hour, but I feel like it was working good for a while, but then it got cold, then, now it's like,
It's a lot harder when it's cold to motivate people.
we'll try again. We'll try again when it's warm again.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good strategy to bring people together, find a sport, an activity, and being outdoor. I think we don't do this enough. And I think it's not really about Australia, it's a generational thing of being in front of our screens on our phones all the time. It does something to our brain. We become so addicted to that, and then we forget that there is a person next to us that we could be communicating with.
100%. Yeah, people just need to go out there and hike. I feel like that's the way to do it. Just go out there and hike.
Yeah. It reminds me, my first serious corporate job that I had here, I was at a desk. Everyone was having a computer, and I was sharing my desk with another person. And for a whole year, this person never said hello to me. Like I tried once, and I think the person ignored me, and I felt so ashamed that I never said hello again because I was like, oh, perhaps she doesn't want to connect with me. So I stayed at my desk, and I felt it was the most isolating experience because we were, I don't know, 50 perhaps, with our desks in, one room, and no one was, stopping to say, hey, how has been your weekend? Or, like something small, but that opens the door to a conversation at a human basic level. It goes back to what you were saying in one of your posts, that you were surrounded by people and yet you feel so lonely. You feel like you are not seen.
That is a big thing here in Australia. I feel like you can go to places in events or anything, but you still feel like you're just there by yourself. There was a time that I went to this fashion thing, and I remember it was this room full of people. I was like standing in the middle of the room, and I remember I was looking around, and it was like everybody in this little tribes, this bullet tribes, and I was standing there by myself, and I was like, I don't even know why I came here. That's what I remember. I told myself, I was like, I'm not even talking to anybody. I'm just here by myself, and it just make you feel like you're just there by yourself. Everything just feels so isolated. I was like, I'd rather just stay home than go to places.
And that's why you stayed home for a while, right? Like you described at the
100%.
beginning of the interview that you were even not really motivated to go to the groceries because you didn't want to see people. That's crazy,
100%.
right?
Yeah. And then another part is like going through a lot of racial profiling from police. I feel like I just try to avoid that.
So that happened a lot.
Oh yeah, that happened a lot. At the end of high school, halfway through uni, yes, I think yeah that happened a lot. And just being pulled over for walking. I made a video recently actually talking about it, and it was because I was like, maybe I need to make a video about it because I do say racial profiling, but then I never put it in context. And one of the examples that I had was me and my friends finished school. We were going to this pizza shop, and I remember we got stopped in the middle of the street, and we were pinned against the wall after school. And then the police was asking us where we are going. And even though we told them we are going to the pizza place, they didn't trust it. And we got pinned on the wall, and then we got searched, even though we just came from school. Clearly, we had school uniform on and school bags. And I think what hit me that time was how everybody else on the street that didn't look like us was staring at us like we did something bad. And I think that hit me because when I turned around and I saw how 15, 20 people just standing across the street staring, it made me question myself like, am I a criminal? And then they asked, where's the ID? I'm like, first of all, we 16. I don't remember you have to walk around with ID. And kind of programmed me. Now whenever I leave the house, I gotta like get the ID, even if I'm just walking down the street. Because I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna stop me and take me to police station. Because I remember I didn't have an ID on me. They took all of us to the police station, and our parents had to come to verify that we didn't do anything wrong. And I think going through that, it kind of conditioned me that every time you leave the house, you gotta leave with an ID. I remember I was leaving the house with one of my friends, and I remember I was checking my pocket, and it was like, "Oh, do you have your phone on you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do have my phone, but I don't have my wallet on me." And then, because my friend is Australian, and then my friend was like, "Why do you need your wallet for? We just going down the street." I'm like, "Hey, I don't know if they're gonna pull us over. Don't worry about it too much, but I'm gonna find my wallet so I can leave the house." And I feel like it's just one of those things that now it's like automatic in my mind that I have to get the wallet.
Like it
Yeah,
stayed with you.
pretty much. Because it happened so many times. So it's like I'm expecting it to happen. That's what it feels like.
Wow. How do you feel when it happens?
It made me feel like I wasn't part of this society. And I think it made me realize that, okay, you're different. You're never going to be part of the society. And you just need to learn to obey and just live your life. And it made me learn to maneuver myself through things. So I got to tiptoe now through things so I don't cause a lot of drama to anybody.
Yeah, but yeah, at the same time, I wonder how you've overcome the feeling of unfairness because it sounds that in those instances, you were not doing anything wrong. And so there was no motives to arrest you. And so, how did you overcome this sense of unfairness? Did you actually?
I don't know if I overcome it, but one of my friends he said, you either cry about it or you laugh about it. I remember my friend told me that, and I was like, okay, maybe you gotta laugh about it because you can't cry about it. Because the more you cry about it, nothing is gonna change. But then if you laugh about it, you just keep moving on with your day.
I guess it's a very wise way of reacting to something that you cannot change and doesn't depend on you. It's crazy that it's a thing and it keeps happening and it's not getting any better. Particularly in Melbourne, there is quite a big issue with the South Sudanese migrants. And I think they are particularly excluded or looked down upon.
Like, I get it, like, when kids do crime, because the way I look at it, I'm not saying that, some South Sudanese kids don't do crime, but that's like every other youth in the world, All the young people do the same thing, you know. They go beat each other up, they commit crimes and all that. But because it's a fracture of number, I just don't understand how we overtake the media platform. They're saying that we're committing most of the crime when we don't even make up 1% of the population, which is crazy because, like, but there's so many other different crimes that's going on in Melbourne and people don't talk about it.
Yeah, it's disproportionately focused on those communities, which makes it seem that it's bigger than what it actually is in terms of numbers.
100%. And when this thing was happening, I remember South Sudanese, like we were just new in Australia, because with South Sudanese community, a lot of them start coming here in like 1990s until now. So when I came here in 2006, everybody else was like extremely new in the country. So basically, we were trying to figure out how do we adjust into this new society. But then us going through racial profiling, which is crazy because like we just got here.
Mm. Yeah, and it's interesting. It's like what you said about, am I a criminal? You get to question whether you actually are the thing that they see in you. And I think that perhaps a lot of youth would take that on board.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure some people want to rebel against it, and because they want to rebel against it, they get into more trouble. So, yeah, maybe that's why.
Yeah, and I think there are psychological studies around how others' expectations of us lead us
Mm,
to have a certain behavior. If, for some instance, you hear from your teachers that you are smart and
mm,
wonderful, then your grades are going to go up. And if you hear that you are super stupid, then
mm,
you're going to believe it and actually do something that is going to reinforce the belief that people put in you. So I think that this is a fair comment to say.
100%.
Do you have a final advice for migrants who feel homesick, who are newly arrived here and struggled? Perhaps, a piece of advice that has helped you time and time again and that you think would help others if they embraced it.
I would say maybe join events. I would say join events. Could be any event, but join event, integrate. I think what I figure out that helps so much is try to integrate with other migrants
Mm,
because they understand you more. And you would actually have better relationship, better friendship with other migrants. There's Australians out there that are good as well, you know. It's gonna be hard to find them, but most of them want to hang out in their own groups. So yeah, so my advice would be try to find people that are like-minded.
mm. Yeah, and other migrants can become a sort of family, chosen family.
Yeah. Like I have a lot of friends from China, which is good. Yeah, like we kind of understand each other. It's nice.
And you're so right that knowing that they have had the same experience of integrating into another culture, having their family left behind, having their past identity left behind, there is common ground here. Do you have a book, a movie, a show, or any other kind of content that inspired you that you would like to recommend? It could be anything that inspired you. It could even be, because I know that you are very present on social media, it could be a profile of someone that, you think perhaps deserve more recognition.
This guy called The African Diary.
Ah.
Have you heard of him?
No, I don't think I have actually.
This guy called The African Diary. He lives in Africa. And I remember last year I was watching a lot of his content. And before I start putting out a lot of content, I was watching his content. And he would ride a bike in the street of Nairobi and he would tell stories while riding a bike. And he has a book. Yeah, I can't remember the book, but yeah, definitely The African Diary. That's the guy.
Okay. And is there someone either from your community or someone that you admire that you would love to hear on this podcast?
The guy that I do podcasts with would be interesting to get him. Yeah, it's K
Mm.
Bizu. Yeah,
Bisou is his name?
K Bizu. Yeah, that's his page.
Bisou, okay.
Yeah, would be interesting to see his perspective on some of the things. He does a lot of videos on racism and discrimination. He's African that's born in Australia. It's actually he used to be originally from Sydney and he moved to Melbourne. I don't think he shares a lot of his opinion, but he's always in the middle. It's fairness. That's what I'm supposed like he's a justice guy. And it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a first generation as well. And I find that it is quite interesting, I think, when you are born in a country, but your parents were from another heritage and you grew up with two different cultures, but at the same time, by definition, you are a bit more integrated because you go to school and everything. So it's a different dynamic. It's very interesting, I find.
It is, yeah. So he's an interesting guy. So that's two guys.
I have two last questions for you. When I say the word migrant, what are the words that instinctively come to mind?
If you talk about migrant, it reminds me of wildebeest.
Of
You know,
what?
you know the animal wildebeest? Like buffaloes? Wildebeest from Africa. They migrate from Kenya to Tanzania. So that's what I feel. So whenever we talk about migration, that's what it reminds me of. And I feel like that's what humans are as well. We always trying to find a greener grass somewhere else. We're moving from one place to another place to learn a new culture, a new way of living, a new integrating with different people, new people. And for me personally, I feel like from my father, my mother, there's too many migration that's been going on. Like my father and my mother, they both met in Ethiopia. My father went worked in Ethiopia. My mother went there and they met. And some of my siblings and me were born there. Then we migrated to Kenya, and then now I'm in Australia. So I feel like I'm like wildebeest, just moving around.
Wow. Okay. I didn't know that your parents had migrated themselves as well.
Yeah. So I think yes, too much movement. So and who knows what the future holds.
Yeah, perhaps your kids, if you decide to have kids, are going to
Yeah.
migrate as well.
They might migrate somewhere. Life is all about migration, right? It's all about finding better opportunities somewhere and integrating with other people, learning. I think the most important thing for me is when I migrate into a new place is learning about the new place. Like I learned so much about Australian history. I learned about different things, and then just learning about the way the society function in Australia, because it's all comes down to just learning.
Yeah, and there are things that you cannot learn until you actually experience what it is to be the other, what it is to encounter a different culture. I think you probably have this feeling as well, I imagine, that I would have been a very different person if I had not migrated to Australia.
Yeah, I think I would have been a businessman if I didn't move to Australia. I always think that I would have been a businessman.
But are you still proud, though, of the person that you've become here as a result of the migration?
I feel like, yeah, it's been a good journey. It's been a good experience. Um, Learning a lot. And still, there's more coming that I'm still learning. So we will see. We'll see what the future holds in Australia. But there's gonna be a lot of more new experiences that's gonna come as we go. So who knows?
Well, my last question has to do with belonging in between cultures. And so I wonder, as someone who has ancestries from Uganda and Sudan, but was born in Ethiopia and migrated to Kenya before resettling in Australia, where is home to you?
This one, I was actually watching a video about that. Maybe last year. I feel like last year was like the year that I learned so much. I was watching a video last year about this girl. She's Ugandan, but she's a Ugandan that was born in England, but then she was raised in America. So she grew up until she was like in her teens, moved to America, finished college there, moved to Kenya, and then moved to Uganda. So she has this blend of experience, right? And she said no matter where she goes, she doesn't completely feel like she belongs. Whether she was in a place where everybody speaks the same language, or whether she was in England, whether she was in America. But what she said was all the pieces of her makes her belong everywhere because she has pieces of all these different places. And I feel like the pieces of myself, some pieces of me belong in Australia, some pieces of me belongs in Kenya or South Sudan. But I think it's the pieces of myself that made me a complete human, and it's the little bits because it's all the experiences that we went through. Without those experiences, I would not be me. So now I belong everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
Yeah, and it's like you flip this around, and all these places are in you and make
Mm,
you whole in a way.
yes.
I really like that. And so, do you feel though that you belong in Australia?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I think it depends on where you are. Like for example, when I went to Brisbane, I definitely didn't feel like I belong in Australia. But in Melbourne, it's like something about Melbourne. Whenever I leave Melbourne, I feel like I'm missing home because it's like Melbourne is home. And I think it's maybe because the people in Melbourne. Because sometimes feeling like you belong somewhere is the people around you. It's not actually the house, it's not the area. It's about the connection and the community that you built that makes you belong.
Yeah. And do you feel though with the friends that you have that there is no code switching happening? Do you feel like you can be your true, authentic self now?
Most of my friends are like migrants as well. And I do have some Australian friends. Maybe one of them or two of them that I can actually just talk to them and just not be somebody. But with the other migrants, I feel like I'm just me. I'm that guy, just loud, just says anything. But then with the other guys, it's like I have to like turn it down a little bit, making sure that they're all right.
So, yeah, you need to find the people with whom you don't feel like you have to be somebody you're not.
Yeah, and you have to change the accent. So there's times where I have to speak a little bit different, where you have to be professional, where you have to be yourself, and then there's time where you can be jokey. Because I feel like Me personally, I don't think I'm a serious person. I don't think I am. I joke a lot. And friends that see that, and then one day they see me like super serious, they're like, oh, who's this guy?
Mm, yeah,
So
yeah. Is there something that we haven't talked about that you think would be important to finish the interview on?
I would say loneliness and mental health is real, and people need to check on their friends, family members, or people they know, making sure that they're safe and hang out with them. I mean, it's not that hard to call somebody for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or just catch up with them, do like a walk. I think yeah, everybody just needs somebody to talk to.
Mm. And reach out to other people when you think about them. Just do it, send this
Yeah.
2-second message. Because, yeah, it's true that sometimes we think about people and we don't take the time to be like, okay, just even not a very big paragraph but
Yeah,
just, hey, I've been thinking about you. How are you doing?
that's it. That's all. Just quick message and move on. That's about it.
Yeah. Even small gestures can be very meaningful. So, for people who want to, follow you and keep up to date with all the things that you are doing, where should they go? Where can they contact you?
I got TikTok and Instagram, and let's talk about it with Ochan. I got YouTube channel, but I don't really be posting much on it. So until I post a lot, then people can get it. But it's all the same name.
Yes,
Yeah.
let's talk about it with
Let's
Ochan.
talk about it with Ochan.
I think, as I said at the beginning, what you do is really real and it really brings important topic in a very personal way. But I think a lot of people can relate to what you've been experiencing, and you're not afraid of talking about things that, yeah, are very deep, raw, and yeah, I have a lot of admiration for your work. So I really encourage everyone to have a look at your platform and go and see your content and like it and share it. And yeah, I think what you do is really amazing. And it was just a pleasure to have you on From There to Here. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Ochan. If this conversation resonated with you in some way, please share this episode with a friend, leave us a review, or add stars in the rating of the show. And don't forget to follow us, it really helps this community grow. In 2 weeks, I will be interviewing Fabiola Campbell, a migrant from Venezuela who's now a published author and the founder of Professional Migrant Woman. Together, we will talk about her new book, the shame many migrants carry, the internal hierarchies of migrants' worth, and the journey from focusing on what you lack to owning every part of yourself. So stay tuned. I was your host, Emma Bellamy, and I cannot wait to bring you on another journey from there to here.